Hi, everyone. We're going to get started with gaining compliance insights through HITRUST assessments. So today's panel is going to be a little bit different. We're really looking for discussion from you all, questions that you have. So what we're going to do is I'll give a quick overview of what we're doing with some new capabilities that we're bringing, which we're really excited about. And from there, we'll give it to you guys to ask whatever questions you might have. So just to get started, let's introduce our panel. I'm Kristen Cloy. I'm Senior Director of Cloud Partner Development here at HITRUST. I work with the major CSPs to make sure that we're running joint programs that are going to mutually benefit our customers and make them more successful.
Hi, good morning. I'm Louis DeBurs. I'm the Chief Privacy Security Officer at Small Digital Health. I've been with them almost 4 years now. Overall, been about 20 years in the healthcare sector, working primarily with Canadian, but also with a lot of US healthcare providers such as HIEs and hospitals.
Ryan Patrick, VP of Adoption. You may have seen me around.
Hey everyone, David Holding, Director, Global Healthcare Business Strategy at Microsoft. I lead the security compliance initiatives for health and life sciences at Microsoft.
Great. So to set up what we're talking about here today, we have a new capability that is all around helping you scale globally. So organizations right now are facing multiple frameworks that they need to adhere to, regulations like HIPAA, data protection laws like GDPR, Ontario PHIPAA, and particularly when you're looking to go into new jurisdictions, you are having to comply with an entirely new set of local regulations, data protection laws, security and privacy standards that we call authoritative sources. And so what we want to do is make it easier for you to scale globally by kind of cutting that impediment to global compliance through using your existing HITRUST assessment work to help represent where you stand in comparison to one of those authoritative sources. So recently, we've been working with the people on stage here to develop what we call a compliance insights report. The idea behind the compliance insights report is it's, first of all, a HITRUST assurance program report. It is not a certification, but what it will do is allow you to take the results of your HITRUST assessments that you've already done and translate that into the context of one of those local authoritative sources that you're looking to either internally or externally show that you align with. So you'll take your HITRUST assessment results, you will, from those results, generate a compliance insights report, and from there, it'll put it into the context of that authoritative source. So in the example of HIPAA, in HIPAA is where we started with the compliance insights report. Once you run that report, we'll get not only an overview of what the report means in the context of HIPAA, but also a line-by-line kind of itemization of where you stand in regards to the requirements. So whether you're fully compliant, partially compliant, not compliant, which will allow you internally to remediate any gaps much more quickly, and then externally be able to show organizations that are requesting that you align with specific local authoritative sources that you do in fact meet the requirements that they're asking you to meet. So we recently partnered with Microsoft, and Louise participated with Smile Digital Health as a customer in a pilot against the HIPAA Compliance Insights Report, which is the first one that we started with, to make sure that the report itself is going to be usable and helpful, that it's actually going to generate the outcomes that we want it to generate and make compliance easier globally. So obviously HIPAA is not a global authoritative source, that's in the US. So from here, we do intend to expand further. The pilot that we hosted was very successful. We found that our customers found a lot of validity in the report and that it would be helpful for them moving forward. So we do plan to expand next into Ontario PHIPAA as the next global step, as well as GDPR in Europe. So that's not where we'll end. We'll definitely include more authoritative sources on our roadmap as we go, but that's where we're starting for now. So I think where we'll go from here is we'll start our discussion portion. Any questions that you have about the compliance, let me actually flip a slide. Any questions that you have about the actual compliance insights reports, about global scale. We've got Luis here who can talk to it from his perspective. We've got David here who's worked with customers at Microsoft to do so on a broad scale. You can talk about how this fits in with your HITRUST certification that already exists, what are next steps. And then, of course, we've got Microsoft here on the stage, and we did this in partnership with them. We can talk about anything regarding the partnership as well. So feel free to raise your hand with any questions. I think I'll go ahead and read one myself just to get us warmed up. And maybe I'll throw this one to David first. So once you download your compliance insights reports, what are next steps? Where do you go from there?
Yeah, it's a great question. And so just to add a little bit more context around that, my industry focus is health and life sciences, and compliance serves healthcare. And health and life sciences is motivated to improve quality of patient care, reduce cost of care, improve access, all those good things. That depends on solution adoption. What this is about is accelerating the adoption of solutions and the time to value of those solutions. And the way it does that is streamlining compliance. So imagine as a solution provider, you're talking to a healthcare customer, and they want to know, so they get the value prop of the solution, but they want to know, like, how does this look from a compliance standpoint up front, right? That's what the compliance insights reports are doing. It's giving them that clarity. Hey, this solution running on this cloud has these requirements. And by the way, these are your requirements in the context of HIPAA or GDPR, whatever the case may be, whatever's local to you. I mean, if they're HITRUST, great, just give them a HITRUST report. But if they need HIPAA or GDPR, that's what that's about. But give them that clarity, alleviate confusion, answer their questions, accelerate the yes decision to adopt that solution, get them focused on their responsibilities, on the gaps, if you will, and even what products and services can help address those gaps. And so help them achieve, get audit ready, get assessed, get certified, and go live, and again, accelerate that time to value. So and then from the healthcare organization standpoint, they're receiving the solution pitch, they're asking their solution provider, what about compliance? The solution provider provides them the compliance insights report. They're able to see proactively, the compliance team in the healthcare organization can see proactively, what are my requirements under HIPAA? What do I get from Microsoft and solution providers, say Smile Digital Health? What are my responsibilities? And okay, for this gap or my responsibility, what are the products that I may already have that can help me with this, or what are the products I need to get that can help me with this? So that's what we see as the utilization. We've received very positive feedback from the HIPAA pilot, which wrapped up in March this year, and very much look forward to the PHIPAA pilot in Ontario and Canada coming up later this year, and GDPR beyond.
Yeah, and that said, we will be running a PHIPAA pilot similar to what we did with HIPAA. That's another question you can ask, is about involvement in pilots, but feel free if you are interested in doing business in Canada. We have not closed pilot participation yet, and we are happy to talk about that further if it might fit for you. Any audience questions just yet? Hey guys. You don't need a microphone.
Yeah, I think it's natural for me to tackle this one. So I think it really boils down, Chalice, to probably the normal conversations you're already having with your customers up front, understanding their business drivers and where they ultimately want to go via HITRUST. Because clearly, we're going to want to incorporate whatever the authoritative source is up front in their assessment, so it's as comprehensive as possible. Because if you do the standard HITRUST assessment, there's not complete coverage over something like HIPAA. So when the compliance insight report is generated, there'll be missing data fields, if you will. So it's really important for the assessors to kind of understand, where's my customer today, but where do they want to go, and then build the assessment to support that. And just for clarity's sake, these compliance insights reports were born out of consistent feedback that HITRUST has gotten from the market about, hey, I hand them my HITRUST report, but it's in HITRUST ease. And they're expecting it to see it in HIPAA in accordance with the safeguards, as an example. So these compliance insights reports are not, here's the HITRUST control requirement and then how it maps to the safeguards. It is just the safeguards and demonstrating your testing results through that safeguard lens. So it is in the exact language that a regulator, as an example, would expect to see your compliance to something like HIPAA or GDPR or what have you. So I'm going to continue to probably jump on this. We are looking for more pilot candidates. We're also looking for feedback from really everybody to make these insights reports as comprehensive and clear as possible. For example, with the PHIPAA pilot, we're engaging, there we go, we're engaging some of the authorities within Ontario, Canada to get their feedback to make sure it makes sense to them. So we're actually hoping to get them to weigh in on, does this report actually meet the intent, if that makes sense.
Can I add a little bit to that? So absolutely, good perspective there. And if it's a HIPAA compliance insights report you want to generate, you got to include the HIPAA optional scope in the HITRUST assessment. I also want to look at it from the standpoint of the compliance sort of life cycle. There's solution adoption, then there's get the yes decision. Yes, we'll take that solution on board, healthcare organization. Then they have to have a gap assessment, audit readiness assessment, certification, right? The compliance insights reports, we look at them as on the front end. So the solution adoption, again, proactively enabling the healthcare organization to have a look at what am I taking on board here from a compliance standpoint in saying yes to the solution. But once they get the solution and they want to get, certified, whether it's HITRUST or some other authoritative source directly, that's the conventional life cycle with the external assessor, right? The compliance insights report, getting that and complying with the gaps in that report doesn't constitute certification. So there's a lot of downstream work to do for external assessors, and that's one of the reasons that these pilots that we're running in collaboration with HITRUST very much welcome the assessors to participate, get an early preview. What do these compliance insights reports look like? What works well from your standpoint? What could be improved? And what are your priorities from an authoritative source standpoint? Not just in the US. I mean, there's FedRAMP and all kinds of other potential compliance insights reports. But as you think outside the US even, for those multinational organizations, what are the regulations, data protection laws, privacy security standards you'd like to see next in terms of compliance insights?
I was just going to add that the insight reports have been very helpful in putting it in plain language for the compliance of the privacy officers to interpret how we implement the controls required by HIPAA, and our hopes be HIPAA as well. But really makes the conversation very easy. Instead of digging into technical controls and translating on their behalf, they have a report. They can just go line by line and understand how we meet a specific requirement by virtue of which control we implement. So it's really made my job a lot easier. The conversation, as I said, has been a lot easier. Certainly made the RFP and the whole discussion in getting new clients. And so I know the discussion was about ROI and how HITRUST helps you. For us, it's been very helpful in achieving new business because that conversation it goes a lot smoother. The privacy officers don't feel neglected or alienated by having a highly technical or cryptic report that they have to review. So again, it's been very helpful for us.
I have a two-part question. First is how do customers sign up for this? And the second one is how will they get access to the reports?
I can answer that. So to sign up, it's more of just a request through MyCSF. That's where it will be available. And it will essentially be based on the individual authoritative source. So if you are interested in HIPAA, you will purchase the HIPAA Compliance Insights Report, and that will be delivered through MyCSF. It is also tied to CSF versions. So we've been discussing Ontario PHIPAA. We actually, as part of version 11.2, will be adding a lot of the requirements of PHIPAA into our CSF to where you are able to add that into your scope. So in order to produce a PHIPAA Compliance Insights Report, you'll need to be on version 11.2 or later. And you'll see that with various authoritative sources if they need to be mapped into our CSF and aren't already, or if certain parts need to be mapped, then they will be available within the version release for CSF. Any other questions from the audience so far? I do have some more warm-up questions if need be. Okay. Let's Ryan, maybe we can talk a little bit about how the traversable portfolio fits into the idea of global scale.
Yeah, so if you think about what's happening here in the US and then, thinking more broadly globally, entering these new markets and being subject to these other regulations or even frameworks is going to be somewhat of a daunting task. So you can use the portfolio to kind of, as you probably heard several times over the last couple of days, to kind of dip your toe in the water with something like the E1 and get started to understand where you currently are from a compliance and maturity perspective against these authoritative sources or other regulations, and then you can grow from there. So the portfolio itself is providing not only the roadmap or the movement along the spectrum, if you will, from a cybersecurity maturity perspective, generally, it's also giving you that on-ramp and roadmap more globally as you start to look at entering new markets.
And I think one other thing is let's go back to talking about next steps once you're kind of on the path to generating a Compliance Insights report. David, you mentioned briefly earlier that there are certain remediation next steps that might involve looking at the products and services that align with those remediation steps. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So, in giving that report to a healthcare organization, we're seeking to enable proactive look at compliance, not reactive. And, one of the things they're going to get out of these reports is, okay, what do I get from, say, Microsoft Azure and Smile Digital Health in terms of compliance with X regulation, let's say HIPAA? But then what are the things that I'm responsible for as a customer, proactively? And we don't just want to toss that sort of project on them. We want to give them some guidance. Hey, for this identity and access management requirement, consider using this product or this service provider to help you meet that requirement. In many cases, we expect those customers may already have those products and may even have the service provider contracted. And this gives them a way to leverage those investments. In some cases, they may be new products that they want to consider, but we don't just want to toss a sort of project in their lap. We want to give them some guidance. Hey, where can you go? Not that just getting a solution can satisfy a requirement, but we want to get them as far along as possible. And this is all in the interest, again, of accelerating solution adoption and time to value, which obviously depends on them addressing gaps and enabling them to deliver the benefit back out to the health and life sciences, to the patient.
Great. Any additional audience questions? These are a quiet bunch. Then maybe I'll throw it back to Louise a little bit and talk more about your company's journey for global compliance and scale, and how not just the Compliance Insights reports have happened, but just your personal experience and moving forward.
How much time do we have? No, just kidding. So I was fortunate. I started this company with a fairly blank canvas. I was able to implement a program from scratch. Effectively, we started with ISO 27001, which is really the most common standard that we use up in Canada, with an eye onto entering the US market. So luckily for us, really, we were fortunate in the sense that we had clients demanding, actually initially requesting, but then demanding that we become HITRUST certified. As you do as any innovative or new company, you say, oh yeah, it's on our roadmap and off we go. So we committed, hey, we'll deliver this within 12 months. Little did I know how big of a job it was, but here we are, I'm still gainfully employed. But overall, HITRUST has been great because really a lot of the things we put in place became stepping stones to achieving HITRUST certification. For us, it was primarily getting ISO 27001 in place. Really, that covered about 10% of what all the HITRUST framework for R2 requires. We also started looking at our HIPAA compliance report and making sure that we met all the legislative requirements. And really, that meant that we had to build our team, implement a lot of policies and standards, as you will in most organizations, and get that in place. And shockingly, when we started working with our assessor, we actually had a lot of the work in place already to achieve the policies, the procedures, and it's a part of the implementation. Mind you, there were a lot of gaps. So over the course of the next 6 to 9 months, we get going. But one thing I would like to highlight is HITRUST has been significant in our company. Not only has brought a lot of business for us, because again, we are primarily US, most of our clients are US based, but really, we are always trying to innovate. So we're always looking at new standards, new new implementations to improve our program. One of them was shifting from slowly from ISO 27001 to NIST SP 853, and the privacy and security controls. And that's been a surprise because, lo and behold, after we implement HITRUST, we're about 2/3 of the way there. So obviously, we still have a long way to go. Eventually, with some luck, we'll get FedRAMP ready and so forth. But HITRUST has been great for our journey, just be implementing a lot of controls that we didn't even know we needed to implement. So a lot of pleasant surprises. We achieved our ISO 27017 privacy controls for cloud services. Again, credit to HITRUST because a lot of them actually had been ready to implement as part of the requirements to get our R2 certification on V9.4. Now, we are trying to get other certifications. I am not at liberty to say all of them, but certainly it's put us on the right path to achieve a lot more certifications. And really, it was a hard project to implement, especially in less than 1 year, but certainly we're glad we did it because it puts us in a great position to achieve potentially other certifications and attestations.
Hey, Louis, if I can follow up on those comments. So as you completed your HITRUST certification journey, not your adoption, so to speak, did you find challenges with communicating your HITRUST results to certain entities within the US healthcare market and even up in Canada because they just weren't familiar with what HITRUST was doing?
Correct. So in Canada, HITRUST is not readily accepted. They'll look at it, maybe partially for Canadian insecurity. They don't want to take on a US certification at face value, but primarily our US clients have been quite knowledgeable of HITRUST, so it hasn't taken a lot of convincing for them to accept our HITRUST R2 letter. In terms of understanding it, yeah, as you mentioned, there's a lot of language specific to HITRUST, so we've done our best to interpret it and provide that. Definitely the new insights reports make that job a lot easier for us, so thank you for that. But really, in the US market, we haven't had too many challenges about HITRUST because it is known, it's a known quantity, it's accepted. It's becoming really the gold standard for us in our healthcare sector. In Canada, well, we are doing inroads, so we'll try to do our good work on behalf of HITRUST, and I'll get my commission check later. But overall, we do have a lot of controls implemented. In Canada, we do follow a lot of standards as well, like NIST 853 and 27001, so there are a lot of pieces already in HITRUST. It's a matter really them to understanding. So we do education and ensuring that our Canadian clients can accept HITRUST as well. So I'm hoping with the new HIPAA pilot that this will be more, that we have more understanding and acceptance of HITRUST up north of the border.
All right, I have another question for you.
Just wanted to make a comment on that one before you move on. It's really interesting to hear from a solution provider that operates across multiple different countries, multiple different regulations, data protection laws, security privacy standards they need to comply with. For them, this is like, the value prop is clear. But even for solution providers just within the US, right? Imagine, reaching out to your customers. One's concerned about FedRAMP, one's concerned about NIST, one's concerned about HIPAA. Imagine being able to whip out a compliance insights report for any one of those frameworks. Like, we all know that HITRUST has done this phenomenal work mapping the CSF to over 50 authoritative sources, but today there's not an easy report to pull up where you can show that. That's the gap that these compliance insights reports are addressing, and they're really going to streamline compliance, not just globally, but even just across the US, where we got multiple different authoritative sources. So I'm super excited about it. Also, we had the AI session this morning. Very excited to hear some of the AI initiatives that HITRUST is actually using to accelerate that mapping of CSF to new authoritative sources. As a solution provider like Smile Digital Health moves into other countries, other regions worldwide, obviously compliance is something that needs to be addressed, and this can help streamline their growth globally as well.
So when you forced me to come to dinner last night, we talked really quickly. We talked really quickly about the StateRAMP pilot because we did a session yesterday on StateRAMP, and it immediately triggered something for you, like, oh wow, that's something I'm really interested in. And what hit me was the ease for you in the future to pivot from HIPAA to even PHIPAA to now even StateRAMP, all based on that one assessment in these reports.
Yeah, and it really goes back to us trying to continuously improve and grow as a company. We are aware that to work or act in certain sectors, we need to up our game. FedRAMP is certainly one of the certifications or attestations we're trying to achieve. So hearing you say, oh, we're doing state ramp and working potentially with FedRAMP, it's music to my ears. I mean, and the fact that, looking at GDPR, for instance, yet another module we can add on. So I can do a lot of work up front and then potentially reuse that to achieve compliance with different frameworks. So to me, if it's a win-win. So sure, I'm happy to participate and put a little extra time because eventually I'm going to put that time anyway, so I might as well just do it now.
Do we have any additional audience questions?
I've got one. Could you comment on shared responsibility and inheritance and what that means in compliance insights and global scale?
Yeah, so I think of, Microsoft supported shared responsibilities and inheritance for a long, long time. We're happy to say we upgraded CSF 11 to maximize shared responsibilities and inheritance for you all. And that's on the acceleration of organizations wanting to get HITRUST certified, and they can further leverage the traversable levels of assessment. We heard about E1, I1, R2, which is awesome sort of staircase of moving up levels of assurance. And then, so that's all about accelerating, getting you to the stage of HITRUST certification. That's what actually generates the assessment results inside of your MyCSF account that you can then report on with these compliance insights reports, right? So that's getting HITRUST certified is a prerequisite to generating these reports, and definitely keep your eye on, if you have intent to generate these reports for, say, HIPAA, make sure you include that HIPAA optional scope in your HITRUST assessment for privacy rule, security rule, breach notification rule, because the HIPAA compliance insights report does depend on that. So think of those as getting to HITRUST certified and then being able to leverage compliance insights from there. And really, HITRUST forever's had this strategy of assess once, report many. This is really amping up the report many side of the equation, right? And it's really increasing the value back to those organizations that are investing time and cost and budget and resources in getting HITRUST certified, being able to leverage that in all different kinds of compliance insights reports downstream. I think it greatly increases the return on investment.
I think, David, it's safe to say, because Microsoft is already operating in all of these different regions and is complying with all of these different regulations, frameworks, whatever it may be, it actually expands the availability of the shared responsibilities between your customers and the work you've already done as you continue to add to your HITRUST assessment and bring in these other authoritative sources. So it gives more capability to your customers.
Yeah, absolutely. I think both on the assessment and certification against HITRUST and the automation that you all have put around shared responsibilities. I mean, the mechanics of it, like when a health and life sciences organization goes through HITRUST assessment with their external assessor, identifying what's a Microsoft responsibility, what's shared, et cetera, asserting that our Azure audit team catches those requests, validates them. I mean, the automation that you all have put around that, and so it's not just a concept, it's actually streamlined operations, is super interesting to us. And the value prop that HITRUST has here in the US grew out of healthcare providers having this complexity of multiple different authoritative sources to comply with. This is a problem that we see with health and life sciences organizations worldwide. Like even if you go into Canada, right, I think Lewis was talking earlier, there's Ontario HIPAA data protection law, but then there's also ISO 27000. They may, have to comply with GDPR depending on the exact business. And so wherever an organization has this business problem or this compliance problem of having to comply with multiple different authoritative sources, there's a huge value prop for HITRUST there and, all the benefit and automation of shared responsibilities and inheritance.
Great. I think where I will leave you for now is, unless anything else? No.
We have a question back here.
Chris and I got one for you.
Oh, go ahead.
I saw that the ISO 27001 is on the roadmap as being one of the authoritative sources for the Compliance Insight Report. What does that mean for an organization that is currently doing an R2 validated assessment, also gets the ISO 27001 cert? With this Compliance Insight Report, would that mean that's going to replace the ISO 27001 report that they currently do? Or is it something that can be leveraged as part of the certification that they annually get?
Yeah.
So like any good security professional, I'll respond with, it depends, right? So it really depends on what the business driver for that entity what they're trying to accomplish, right? Because the compliance insight reports, if you recall from Kristen's opening comments, is not a certification, right? It's a demonstration of compliance through this report and in the language that someone who's expecting to see ISO results would see it, right? But, so it could replace it in some cases if they don't want that ISO certification. If they actually want that ISO certification, then they likely will still need to go through that ISO certification path.
Totally agree with that. And just to sort of bold it a little bit is how we're looking at it from Microsoft Global Healthcare Compliance Scale Program standpoint is, you know, say the ISO 27000, you know, compliance insights report is provided by a specific solution provider. Let's say it's Smile Digital Health and they're running on Azure and a report is specific to their solution running on that cloud platform. That is informational, it's proactive information to the healthcare organization that's looking at adopting that solution, right? That solution isn't in their environment yet. Maybe they don't even have Azure yet. What it's saying to them is, if you take this solution and this cloud platform, this is the kind of compliance requirements you're going to be, you know, subject to in your local authoritative source. This is what you're going to get from Microsoft and Smile. This is what you're responsible for. Here's the products and services that can help. But it does not constitute certification, right? It's so they can get a proactive look at compliance and understand what they're getting into in adopting this solution. But once they adopt the said solution, they need to go through the regular, you know, gap assessment, audit readiness assessment, certification. The compliance insights report will tell them gaps that they'll have and responsibilities, but them fulfilling those gaps does not constitute certification.
If I may add to that, so I agree completely. So it does not replace certification, but what it does help you, it saves you a lot of time and potentially a lot of money by using the generated report from HITRUST as a gap assessment, if you will. So effectively, you'll have to do a readiness assessment. You'll have to do most likely an internal audit before you do your full audit. From my perspective, it would save me a lot of time running this so I know what the gaps are so I can address them. And then you potentially can negotiate the internal audit to maybe reduce the cost maybe by half or so, because a lot of this report could be the basis for them to review your controls that you have in place.
I have a follow-up question. And Ryan, this is maybe for you specifically. I'm here if you're looking for me. The same way HITRUST is working with StateRAMP to provide a joint certification, on the roadmap, is there something similar to work with ANAP for ISO 27000 or to work with a PCI Council for PCI ROC assessments to maybe have QSAs and ISO certified lead auditors to be able to certify for ISO or PCI under the HITRUST framework?
So it is not currently on the roadmap, but not deliberately. So I think we're open to any and all partnerships and conversations to reduce the redundancy of everything that we've been talking about this week. So if there is a whirlwind of interest in us partnering with someone specifically to reduce that effort, I think we're more than happy to start to have those conversations.
Okay, great. Then, final parting thoughts I'll leave you with. We discussed today the HIPAA Compliance Insights Report. That's the first Compliance Insights Report that will be available. That should be within the next 45 days, so you'll be able to use it soon. And then, as we mentioned on the roadmap, PHIPAA, GDPR. If you're interested in pilot opportunities, please get with me. Happy to talk about that further. And any additional questions, you can catch us after. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.